Make that big boss less special. It ain't no game, but they saying welcome to the second level. Second level. Second level gaming. Second level.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to our Indy PopCon 2017 coverage. And right now, I'm with my favorite artist of the entire conference, and that is not a lie. I know that seems like I might say that to everyone, but genuinely, this was the thing that caught my eye the most and has been the most enjoyable since I've been here, and that is BD Judkins of Ukiyo-Pop. And so I would love for you to break down this art style and why you do what you do and what makes it so special.
Oh, sure. So this is done sort of in a contemporary homage to some artwork that's called ukiyo-e, which started in about mid-1600s in Japan, which is woodblock printing. So it's a very traditional, very recognizable form of artwork. When ukiyo-e was first established, it came about when Japan got its first middle class. So suddenly there was luxury dollars, there was a huge sort of cultural explosion in the art form, and what you found, this type of work started out as advertisements.
Really?
And then, yeah, and then because it was so well, it kind of, eventually people were like, well, if we're doing landscape paintings of vacation spots, people kind of like to have that collection. You usually collected it in books. They didn't really have wall art back then. But you could buy a book with all this stuff in it.
Like the equivalent of a coffee table book?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And then artists got, when you bought work from an artist, you didn't necessarily buy a single print from them. You would often buy a collection. You did have the option of buying single prints, but it was something you pulled out to kind of look at. There's a really interesting component about ukiyo-e work where they had these very, very distinctive character figure drawings. You can tell when you look at the work that there's a very lot of over-exaggerated poses. There's not very natural stances. And it bred a very, very distinct artwork that I wanted to copy for some personal projects, and it worked. And so now we just have this huge collection. This is what we do now.
So the thing that makes your art unique is that you were saying before that ukiyo-e is like... it was kind of based around the popular culture of the time,
right?
In Japan.
Yeah.
And you are basing it around the popular culture of the time here. So a lot of the pieces, I will have B-roll for these guys to see, but they're all things like Star Wars, or Batman, or Attack on Titan, or Naruto, or the Avengers. So where did that idea come? You just want to stay true to the roots of the original idea?
Yeah, or? The more you go, and I encourage you to go research ukiyo-e, because you're talking about 240 years worth of sort of artistic history and a culture, and it is the definitive art form of the Tokugawa era, which is everyone loves learning about the Tokugawa era in Japan. The sort of distinct thing about ukiyo-e is that it's considered the world's first pop art.
Right.
So the more you get into it and the more you kind of understand what the nature of the work is, the more this all kind of makes sense. When you take like a heavy pop culture saturated environment, which we have now, I mean, we're at a con that is...
It's about as pop culture should get.
PopCon Indy, it is a pop culture convention. For an art form that is supposed to be about pop culture, it works great.
Right.
And we've taken a bunch of those concepts, especially in the wake of like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We have kind of a really oversaturation of what I call the Jim Lee Western comic, which is great. But I think there's also a huge interest in Eastern comic culture. And they do things differently. They show characters differently. They represent them differently. The art is different, but it still ends up at the same endpoint as far as like expressions of heroism. So we took a bunch of popular concepts in film and nerdy stuff that we like, and sort of translated them into sort of a parallel expression in Japanese artwork. And it just works. Like, it just matches.
Really does. It really works amazingly.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you, because
Sure.
I never had a chance to ask you this question yet, is how long does it take to come up with one of these pieces or an idea of pieces?
We get that question a lot. It depends, is really the short answer. It depends on how complicated the piece is.
Give me an example of, let's say, something like the Wolverine piece that you have up here, the larger piece.
Not as long as you think.
Really?
Not as long as you think, because if you recognize, there's really sort of only like 4 major color palettes. There's like the orange of the fire, the red of the ninjas, the blue of the background, and the gray of the building. So not as long as you think.
But something with more color colors.
Right.
Like,
well,
for example, the dress here that has multiple floral
yeah,
prints and
that stuff
a
takes a
little
lot longer. I mean, if you go and you research ukiyo-e artwork, you'll find that when it first started, the designs were very simple.
Right.
There's not a lot of work in there. There's just very simple woodcutting patterns. But then as you transition towards like the 1800s, as Japan entered the Meiji era, Japan got into a lot of colonial wars at that point. So the artwork transitioned from beautiful landscape vacation spots to, there was this huge period of women. It was just like beautiful women. And then it starts taking this really dark turn into like really engrossing violent battle scenes because
depictions of war.
That was popular culture at the time, was
Right.
they were living in a colonial wartime. So if you look at we call this piece the Assault of the Empire, which is inspired by
Battle of Hoth.
Battle of Hoth.
Yeah.
I was looking at some artwork and I went, wow, you know, these outfits are kind of the same. Like the rebel uniforms in Empire Strikes Back are very similar to colonial war uniforms for Japan. So
that's actually very true. And of course,
Yeah.
even Darth Vader and things like that are kind of almost inspired by a samurai like.
Right, Lucas has been very open, I think, about his inspiration by like the Hidden Fortress and stuff like that too. And I think there's an interesting thing. Here's a $50 fact for free. Is there's an interesting thing about Darth Vader's uniform where everyone just sort of appropriates it to the Nazi helmet,
right?
The Kaiser helmet from World War I because of the sort of oppressive association with the Empire, but it's not. It's actually not supposed to be that at all. There's a piece of armor that got invented in Japan in the 1800s once the rifle was introduced.
Right.
Once the rifle was introduced and musket fire, there's a lot of aspects of samurai armor that just became useless.
They were not prepared.
Right. So there was a new helmet that got invented to help deal with musket ball fire.
Wow.
And that's what it was
from.
lacquered black. So if you go look at that uniform, that's actually what is.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And go look at some of the original concept artwork for Vader too. It's pretty great. He has sort of the traditional mask and more of a helmet.
Wow.
So, in fact, the Vader in that piece is more closely based on the concept art for Vader rather than the actual piece. Yeah.
The other sort of standout things, and we had a sort of a discussion about this yesterday.
Yeah.
Was I noticed the Orochimaru and the Jiraiya and the whole set piece here of your Naruto guys with the toad and the snake and the slug.
Right.
And you told me an interesting story about kind of rock paper scissors and kind of how that whole thing works. I would love for you to explain that because I thought that was super interesting.
For any of those of you who enjoy Naruto, you're probably familiar with the 3 Sennin character, which are the sages. Jiraiya, Orochimaru, and Tsunade. And what's great is that I don't know how many people understand in comics and TV and stuff like that how much old world culture and folktale has been reappropriated into these stories, which isn't bad. You don't have to be truthful. It's just great. But Jiraiya comes from an actual folktale called the Tale of the Gallant Jiraiya, who is a ninja with toad magic. And Orochimaru is one of his followers who abandons him, who has snake magic. And in the world of this folktale, snake magic beats toad magic. And so Jiraiya gets his girlfriend, wife, Tsunade, who has slug magic, to help him defeat the snake, because apparently slugs beat snakes. So it's
trying to figure that one out.
Yeah, it's a very... well, the thing is that the way that it's supposed to go is snake eats toad, toad swallows slug, slug dissolves snake. And that's where you get into the weird things. And that's why there's a lot of debate, I think, about where rock, paper, scissors came from, but rock, paper, scissors is
a pretty
still,
solid foundation.
Yeah, it's a very, very big game in Japan. Like they play it way more than we do here. And so my thought was that you would have slug, toad, snake as opposed to the scissors, and it also it's in a reverse order, I think, from we have it. But you know, rock, paper, scissors has that weird thing where paper beats rock, and nobody can figure out how that is.
Right.
So I feel like slug beating snake is kind of that slot.
Yeah.
Where we fit in.
The one where no one's really sure why it works, but it works.
Right. But it's great because you can actually go find a lot of old artwork, a lot of old artwork about Jiraiya and Orochimaru and Tsunade and stuff like that. They have really old ukiyo-e prints.
That's one for the Naruto fans out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had
That's
no idea, and that was fascinating to me.
It was a must do when we finally got around to it because.
So, I'm also assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that you may have spent some time in Japan.
Yeah,
just sense it. You know.
Yeah, every time it's been 13 years, and I'm not a very old guy. It's 13 years. I took a gap year in between high school and college to do a year at a university in Japan.
Okay.
Where I studied Japanese theater and entertainment.
Awesome.
It was great. It was one of the best.
Clearly
years.
a big influence on.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
it was for an angsty, young, angry high schooler to kind of go to a country and learn to chill out and enjoy the culture over there. Japan's a wonderful place, and I think one of the reasons that we enjoy the artwork so much is that concept that they are ending up in the same spot we are, but they're taking a different route.
Right.
Which shines a little bit of light that our route may not be as necessary as it seems. And we really wanted to create a collection of artwork that was a counterbalance to Western representations of heroism, and just give a counterbalance to it so that you can reflect and have something that isn't quite so Stanley in your face.
That's amazing. This genuinely is one of my absolute favorite things I've seen at the con. So I would love for other people to check it out, and I would love for you to tell them where they can check it out.
So the collection is called Ukiyo-Pop. All you have to do is Ukiyo-Pop.com. You're either going to put it down at the bottom.
I will make sure that we have the Ukiyo Pop. So that's where they're looking at. And of course, BD Judkins is the name of the artist that you're looking for here.
We sell everything online. There's also a lot of artwork up there that isn't online. I have an Instagram follower at Ukiyo-Pop Art.
Awesome.
Where we post a lot of really tiny stuff most days, several times a week. So there's a lot of just like tiny warm-up work and stuff like that just to keep the art flowing and,
keep the juices flowing.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to keep working. If it's like a muscle, if you don't do it, you're going to lose it. It's just how it works.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for spending some time with us here. Genuinely, this has been a lot of fun. It was very lovely to meet you.
Thank you.
And as always, guys, welcome to the second level. Bye.
It ain't no game, but they saying welcome to the second level.